501 Cast. Information you need from experts we trust.
Thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of the 501 Cast. Today we're going to talk about energy and the management of it, positive versus negative energy, anabolic, catabolic. And we are going to talk about how this energy affects your leadership and your organization, what those effects are and how to manage them, and then moving toward anabolic energy. We have with us today Natalya. She's the founder and chief energy officer of Life by Design Academy. Natalya, would you take a second to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Natalya Berdikyan, and I'm the founder and chief energy officer of Life by Design and Frontline Consulting. So what we do is we help entrepreneurs and leaders and their organizations to live to their fullest potential. Originally from Russia, currently based in Barcelona, managed to travel still between various countries within Europe for the moment.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to be with us. So could you explain very quickly for us the difference between anabolic and catabolic energy?
Certainly. Well, energy is a big thing, and energy is everywhere. There's a common saying that energy attracts like energy, right? So, and energy flows where the attention goes if you focus on something. So let's see the difference between anabolic and catabolic energy. So the catabolic is really disruptive. So it's a draining, disruptive energy. And it's physics. I'm not talking voodoo science here. So when people are under stress, the brain creates catabolic hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which breaks down the body cells and tissues and provides energy to push through the stress, which is great under deadlines and winning the marathon, for example, right? But long-term, it's creating draining and tension effects. We can go so far by being under stress, right? So what happens with catabolic conditions, when people they're very more reactive, they're fear-driven, constantly dissatisfied, worried, anxiety comes in, problem orientation, they blaming others, condescending, forcing, unkind. They get into that crisis mode because they constantly tense, right? It's that disruptive energy, the draining energy. And so there's a lot of judgment present and very little view on whatever is happening. It's like, if you walk you only see what's on your horizon. So it is associated with stress. So basically, when the brain is under stress, it creates those hormones to protect us. But, unless you're running from the lion, technically, the fear or the stress paralyzes you in the moment. So you're not in that productive, creative space. So, and then there is the anabolic one, which is all about growth mode and uniting with others, with yourself, connecting with yourself. And it's constructive, healing energy. It's like a building force, like when you stand on top of the mountain and the world is above you, at your feet, literally. So it's a fueling energy, and it's a creative, it provides performance, great interactions. Powerful leaders tend to be at that state. It's empathetic, there's a lot of teamwork involved, trustworthiness, cooperation, solution versus problem orientation. There's that helicopter view. It's like you go above on the air balloon and you have that big view from high above. So hence the solutions and opportunities and everything. Confidence, calm, inspiration. People are more responsive and respectful, etc., etc. So what happens is that it is associated with less stress. which happens because when the brain isn't under stress, it tells the body to release anabolic hormones. Again, is physics, like endorphins and dopamine to the body. So that is then, it's designed to optimize our systems. And as a result, it's easier to focus on solutions, tap into creativity, experience more complete and conscious views on the situations from high above. So the whole idea and the purpose is to move from catabolic state into anabolic state, to increase that sense of happiness, joy, productivity, and success in all areas of our life.
So one thing that's really interesting to me when I look at this list is right at the bottom of catabolic is inaction and anabolic is productive. And when I think about stress, often when we're stressing, we're moving faster. We might consider ourselves to be getting more done because we are in a hurry, we're rushing, we're stressing. And this is exactly the opposite. Could you take just a second to talk about why we are more productive when we're in an anabolic state and less productive when we're in a catabolic state?
When we feel under stress, it's like the complete potential, the view is not available to us. We get into this little view, you know, like small view. And especially if we're in that state of anxiety and fear, to perform, to be better, to follow the expectations, our own and everybody else's, our body gets tense because it creates stress. So, and it doesn't connect to that higher intuition, to that flow state, to that creativity state. Because once you're relaxed, nothing changes, but everything changes. You connect to your full potential. You connect to everything you actually know and get into the flow, rather than focusing on what's expected from you and how is everybody is going to perceive it and how are you going to perform. You're there in the moment, and that's when that flow kicks in, that genius kicks in that you naturally have. And then it's also collaborative state. Imagine if the whole team is in that state. They create great results. They're more productive. They're more constructive.
Right.
Lots of great stuff happens in there. Solutions all of a sudden come up.
So busy doesn't necessarily mean more productive. That's what I'm taking out of this. So you mentioned at the beginning, energy attracts like energy. And I'll just read this quote: everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. And that was said by Albert Einstein. You mentioned earlier, this is not voodoo science. Could you speak a little bit about the actual biology and science of this?
Well, it's what I mentioned with the hormones. It really will literally produce the hormones. So in the catabolic state, we produce those catabolic hormones, the adrenaline and cortisol, and it eats from our body cells. And that's why people physically feel drained as well. If you stay in that negative energy for too long, you feel bad, quote unquote judgment. We will say the judgment is not the purpose of the exercise. And we physically feel drained, and that's where all the burnouts happen, depressions happen, all the aggression and all the rest of it. And what happens is in the catabolic state, we feel at effect of life situations and people and actually ourselves, like we have no choice. And that level 1 there, so there's 7 levels of energy, level 1 of being a victim, so being at the effect of it. While the higher we go on the energy levels, you are the creator, you're at cause, you have the choice, you see the choice, you have the solutions because you create the solutions. So what's important to know, at the end of the day, the core energy is what is at the core of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. and therefore that produces results. So if we go into the 7 levels of energy, hear this out. So level 1, right? The state of the victim. The core thought is the victim. The perception that the situation is outside of individual's circle of influence and control. Like COVID, the company got bankrupt, the car crashed into me this morning, my colleague quit, I have to do it all. Anything can come up, right? And then basically you feel like a defect of events, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, whatever, right? And the core feeling and emotion that happens is the apathy, that indifference, lack of enthusiasm, lack of engagement. You feel like, well, why bother? My clients are not going to have the budgets anyways. Everybody's under stress and COVID and stuff. So you feel like you get into the action of lethargy. As a result, you see the situations as being done to you. You cannot control it. So then why bother? So the tendency is to withdraw, avoid, and disengage. And so this feeling also, the state is also leading to a lot of emotion of being stuck, like I have no choice, helplessness, really. And that's the level 1. So level 2, and those are the first 2 levels of being catabolic levels, is categorized by conflict. So the core thought that conflict exists, and that's the perception. And there's a tendency of seeing things black or white, right or wrong, good or bad. So there's a lot of judgment. While in the level 1, you feel like I lose. At the level 2, you want to win and someone else to lose, right? So the core emotions at level 2 would be, because you feel the conflict exists, there is a lot of sense of anger, resentment, entitlement, frustration, or any other conflict-related emotions. Blame if things don't go according to plan, greed, pride, etc. So when you are talking about deadlines or working under stress, level 2 technically is a good one to set into action, because you want to prove it done, you want to get it done, you want to force yourself to do it, you want to push the team, you want to hit the deadlines, work hard and over hours. Now, the disadvantage of that, well, you do move forward to a certain success, which is done by force. How long can you go under such dynamic? It's not sustainable and it is draining. And, leading by force rather than power, in the good sense of power, creates all kind of fear, disengagement, demotivation within the team long-term as well. And so that has a very long-term impact that is negative. Level 3 is that state of being a rationalizer. So it's a mixed bag already of catabolic and anabolic energies. And that's more of an anabolic one. So the core thought is responsibility. I take the responsibility. I have taken on this account. I have signed up for this marriage. I need to stick with it for whichever number of years. Take the responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, and your feelings. And so the core emotion is forgiveness. You pardon yourself, you excuse the others, you let go of resentment and anger, and there's this sense of relief and peace of mind because you commit. There is the action of tolerating, of coping, a lot of coping mechanisms, right? We have hired this person, we put all this money into that, we put all the training, it's good enough. He's good enough, but everybody's going through that hard time. I'm going to make it work. I have taken responsibility. I'm going to stick it out. Well, the disadvantage is that how long can you really go in that state of tolerance and good enough? Are you really connected with that purpose, with the passion, with what you really want? That's a good question, because under stress, then you will tap into 1 and 2 and be either overwhelmed or frustrated. How long can you be going in that state of level 3? But there is a silver lining. You do create collaboration in a way, and you do keep going. Level 4 is the helper. It's a beautiful one to be at. It's moderately anabolic. The core thought is concerned for others. So you win. I love you. I understand you. It's all about you. So, concern, interest, involvement. Core emotions are compassion, love, gratitude, sympathy, concern for misfortune of others. I can imagine that a lot of nonprofit organizations sit in that. It's all about servicing others. It's all about being good. It's having that purpose in mind. So that's the action. The result is service, helping, assistance. What's very important is not to forget the self-care piece, because if you always give and give and give, whether it's in the family or in the workplace or with your customers, God forbid you give in all the margins, what happens at the end of it, we get either overwhelmed and we tap into the level 1, or we get frustrated tapping into level 2. Like, I'm doing my best, I give, and they don't appreciate it. Well, how can they not appreciate it? This is the best service we've provided. We have done everything to win that contract. And then you tap into the level 2 and get angry and all sorts. Or you just get drained and you tap into level 1 and feeling like a victim all over again. Level 5, beautiful state, highly anabolic. A lot of great leaders are in that level, a lot of great anabolic companies that create great stuff. So the core thoughts there are reconciliation. So you come together in agreement and understanding. While on the first one, I lose. The second one, I win, you lose. The third one, I win if you win too great. The fourth, you win. The fifth is we win or we don't play. It's a win-win thing. It's a collaboration thing. It's a really beautiful place to be. So there is less judgment, if at all. So you don't judge anymore for good or bad, right or wrong. And that really helps a lot about people, situations, things, anything. So there's that state of everything happens for purpose. We are learning from everything. Whatever happens, now what, so what? What are we going to do with it? How are we going to move from here? So it's that statement of acceptance. What is, not in a bad way, like in the third level where you tolerate, but in a way that it is what it is. Now what am I going to do about it? So that state of contentment and harmony. And so the action is you believe, the willingness to receive, agreement to do stuff, accepting the differences instead of fighting them. And basically it's all about finding the opportunities, that growth mindset, which is a beautiful place, solution focused rather than fixing a problem or a person. Like on level 4, we're here to come up with a solution together where everybody wins. Beautiful place to be at. Mm-hmm. Level 6, highly anabolic level. Core thought synthesis as the perception that there is, everyone has a gift and talent and they come together as unified whole, blending away the illusion of individuality, right? It gets more spiritual there. The core feeling is joy, a permanent sense of pleasure, happiness, delight. And that's the place of flow, right? So the action result is wisdom, having or showing insight, intuition, enlightenment, etc. And the thing is that if you lose the judgment and if you connect to yourself in the moment, you get into that state of flow, that state of creativity, the oneness. That's a great place to be. You don't care about the opinions of others. And the greatest leaders and geniuses and visionaries come here. All the Teslas and the Apples and whatever, they're in that zone of creating something incredible. And they're not worried about failure, and failure doesn't exist because you've already moved past the learning, right? You've learned from the failure and it's all about opportunities. So, and it's in the flow. The disadvantage there, though, again, there's no bad and good energy. Every energy serves a purpose. The disadvantage there that you're so much up there and might be considered as a bit not grounded, for example. Level 7, so we get to the creator state. And that's where you create your life and situations at your preference. So the core thought, total non-judgment. And I can imagine how difficult it is because we always judge ourselves, situations, people. Imagine no judgment at all, total objectivity, lack of fear. And the core thought is absolute passion, total bliss, energy, intense desire and enthusiasm in anything and all the experiences, right? So it's the action of creation, bringing something into existence, spontaneous manifestations of ideas, thoughts, and genius thinking. So this level is characterized by complete objective thinking. And that's where you are detached from the outcome completely. And winning and losing is an illusion in this state.
So Natalya, I have a quick question for you. In each of these levels, you have said the downside of this is there a downside to being at that highest level of creator?
Well, the downside, it's not a downside, but once you're at the level of creator, and that's not a physical, permanently physical state to be in, you can tap into it. Whether it's in meditation state or in whatever, when you're connecting, you pass through that stuff and you're connecting to your intuitive higher order state. The disadvantage is that, if any, there is less emotional drama, and since nothing seemed to be real, and that's why there are other 7 levels you can tap into, because you can use them at choice once you're there. But then you are perceived as to others as disconnected. But at that level, you don't necessarily care about what others, how others perceive you, right? So
Right.
at level 5, for example, while it's great, it's all about collaboration and creating win-wins and opportunities. The downside of it can be there's so many ideas that you can lose track and be a bit too risk oriented, you know, when it comes to investment or when it comes to too many ideas, and then you start delegating them left and right, and people are like, okay, what? So every level has advantages and disadvantages. And again, it's all about using them at your choice. So if you choose to be at level 1, which you can, well, consciously and not by default, then because you're in that state of apathy and being stuck and total fearfulness and a lack of confidence, and you don't do it because you think, why bother, I'm not good enough. Well, the good news is someone else is going to do it for you. Plus, you're going to create that empathy, and people are going to feel sorry and support and all sorts of things. So question is, well, the purpose is to use it at your need, by consciously, by choice. The same like level 2, you can push for deadlines and you can get things done, as long as you don't do it consistently and push yourself and others over the limit. Then everybody's going to quit and you'll end up in the burnout.
Right. So really interesting to note that you can hang out in any one of these places, but you don't want to stay in one place all the time, right? It's a matter of finding where you belong and when you need to tap into this or that.
Well, the thing is that we are not one level, and that's another thing. And if you do energy leadership assessment, which we provide, you can see that you are a combination of several levels. Now you can have a primary and secondary and tertiary X number of levels. That determines how you react to situations on a good day when everything is great. And then also it shows how do you react and how do you feel, etc., behave under stress. And whatever that is puts us into stress, because under stress, and it can be anything, we'll go through the influences, you can tap into level 1 and 2. Now, if you discover that you're predominantly on level 1 and 2 on a good day when everything's great, that's your normal energetic response to life, then there's something to do about that. Because if you're constantly in the 1 and 2 with that catabolic energy, feeling drained, if you can even get out of bed, some support might be needed there.
Mm-hmm.
And organizations can be catabolic or anabolic, so yeah, great stuff. The influencers. So I was talking about things that affect our energy, and you can experience yourself. One day you feel like this, and another day you feel like that. Something happens and you're totally low in energy and you're demotivated, or the people, and you have no idea what is actually happening, because it seems everything is as it was yesterday. Now what happens is there's several, a part of the energy blocks, they're energy influencers. So spiritual, nothing to do with religion. So it's all about connection to purpose, alignment with vision, values, having the confidence and trust and the sense of fulfillment and contribution, and having something to look forward to. So imagine that you're working with a client or a company where your values are not aligned, where your visions are not aligned. It's constantly hitting your well-being, your spiritual happiness. It influences yourself completely. So that's the spiritual one as an example. The mental one, how do you process your thoughts? Do you have the brain power to understand what needs to be done in the moment? The company pivoted. People have no idea about this new market trends and the industry, for example, or they need to prepare for a negotiation, and it's all about how the brain processes it in the moment, and that can also drain and affect the energy. You can lose the confidence if you don't know what people are talking about. So do people have the information to complete the task, and are they present in the moment and have the ability to focus and ability to access their intuition? So that's the mental one. The emotional one, ability to manage stress response. Responsibility is response ability. How often do we just react on stuff? Do we understand where our emotions are coming from? We're just pushing them away. Okay, COVID, everybody's having a hard time. So what? I should be able to perform. Well, no, it does affect, and it is normal. So people are either excited or they're not excited, and having that awareness is important. Emotional physical influence. Do we sleep enough? Do we have enough nutrition? Are we having good eating habits? That's very important for our well-being and our concentration as well. It affects everything. Do we exercise? The gyms are closed in COVID, and people don't necessarily want to do yoga in front of the computer, but it does affect them physically. It affects them the emotional, and it affects their energy and engagement and all sorts. Social, we're working from home, we're not meeting our family, friends, or whatever, and how do we relate to other people those days? All of that affects the ability to influence and communicate. Also goes within that influencer. Presence in the desired culture, whether it is a country culture that we are at, or it's a corporate culture. Does that fit us? The existence of accountability, the proximity of our nurtured relationships, family. I haven't seen my family in Russia for like over a year now. The whole thing, it affects me. I feel guilty. I tap into level 1. And then the environment, setting the conditions where we work, the temperature, the lighting, the technology that doesn't work, all of this affects our energy. The clothes, are we comfortable, not comfortable? Do we have our sweatpants on and then the tie on the top for Zoom, as an example? But it's interesting how we ignore these things. But all of these things affect our energy and our engagement, and therefore our performance. And that's okay. Now, the question is, how do we, now that we are aware of it, what do we do with it?
Right. Thank you. So, okay. So we've got a picture here of catabolic versus anabolic. If you find yourself too much at that level 1 and 2, how do you move that energy? What is the process?
That's a good question. As you have heard the levels, once you're aware of each level, the easiest trick is to take on the thoughts, emotions, and actions of the level you want to be at. As an example, you're at the level 1, feeling totally incapable, not confident, not relevant. Start thinking, taking responsibility for yourself and for your actions, moving to level 3, right? Having the gratitude and helping someone else, level 4. So it's less about you now, and it's more about the others. So you move from the ego state to the egoless state a little. Accepting self for how we are and not judging. Doing things we're passionate about and moving into that closer to level 6, which is at level 6, it's all about passion. Whether it is, how do you get in the flow? What gives you energy? The music, the sun, the running, talking to people, painting. What helps is anything that gives us energy. And so it's about thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, you can either start with a thought, as we earlier described various ones, or you start with the action. You start to put on the music, start dancing, and then your feeling changes and your thoughts change, and like, whoop, I'm back into the zone, for example. Getting closer to people, communicate with the ones that give you energy, get rid of the toxic people and those toxic emotions and toxic thoughts. There are different hacks.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like the classic, fake it till you make it. If you're stuck in a 2, do something that seems like a 4. And before you know it, you will be on your way to being a 4, 5, or 6, right? Like you, just by making yourself do something, even if you don't want to, taking action is what can move you forward.
Well, I would note on that one, it's more about act as if. So, and hence the visioning exercises help, the meditation helps, manifestation help, because you create that vision where you want to be. So if you're stuck and then you're in that state of tolerance and coping and you're thinking good enough, but actually deep inside, it's not good enough and it's not connected to who you truly are. Well, think about what you truly want. Make that vision board. Think about the dream, what you really want. What are you really great at? Connect to that, increase the self-worth, connect to things that worked well. So you move from the 1 to the higher, and hence having the support system or having a coach or having a team where you have that open collaboration, communication, and support definitely helps.
Great. Thank you. Well, we're out of time for today, but I would like to encourage anyone who's interested in diving deeper for your leadership team, your company, your nonprofit, whatever, to contact Natalya. Her email is here at the bottom of the screen. And thanks again for joining us, Natalya. The study of energy is really fascinating to me, and we look forward to working with you more actively.
Thank you. Here to support, and sign up for the free newsletter as well. It's on the website.
Great idea. Thank you.